That's new.
Oh yeah, yeah, continue, right.
Hello, today I'm talking to RJ. Hello, RJ. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm RJ Dark. I'm the author of A Numbers Game, which is the first book with Mal and Jackie as the protagonists. I have other names which I write other things under. And I'm really excited to be here. I live in Leeds. My books are set in a kind of, it never says it's Leeds, but it kind of possibly maybe is. But they're very northern, they're very northern sensibility and a very working class sensibility, because that's not something you really see much in detectives in the UK. We tend to like our detectives to be quite middle class.
Did you always want to write?
No, I didn't. I wanted to be a rock star. I kind of didn't finish school when I should have finished school, because I bought a guitar and thought I was going to be really, really famous. I did play in bands for a long time and I had a really good time, but eventually I realized I was absolutely hopeless as a musician, and it didn't matter how big my hair was, it wasn't going to make up for it. So I went back to something that I'd always loved before. I've always been a reader, I've always read loads. So I thought, right, I'm gonna write books. So I messed about and did short stories for a long time and didn't get anywhere. And then I thought, right, I'm going to really go for it. I had a bad illness, came out of that, and thought, right, yeah, let's do it. My little boy came along and I started writing novels. And I think my fifth novel actually sold, but that was under a different name. But this novel is one that I've had in my head, A Numbers Game, for over a decade. These characters have been with me. I could just never quite get it right. So yeah, I've not always wanted to write. I've always wanted to do something creative, and I kind of realized that writing books was much more my style than playing instruments was eventually.
You'd be surprised actually how common that is. A lot of people seem to go from songwriting or script writing to writing, so it's not unusual.
There's enough crime writers to have a band. I know that, because they play all the time, don't they? Yeah.
And do you want to just give us a brief outline of what your book is about?
Yeah, it follows Malachite Jones, who has an intentionally silly name, who was brought up on one of the roughest council estates in England and bullied mercilessly for that name. And he's had some problems in his life. When we meet him, he's a psychic medium, though he quite happily admits that he's a fraud, refers to himself more as a bereavement counsellor. And his best friend, who's called Jackie Singh Qatar, who was the person that bullied him mercilessly all through school, and then events transpired that pushed them together that are they're hinted at in the books, but later on in the series we'll probably come back to those and examine them more thoroughly, what actually happened. And Mal is very thorough in his research for his psychic stuff to help people out. This is how he sees it. And Jackie brings him this woman whose husband's died, and he had £8 million and she wants it. And Jackie says, look, we can find that, we can do it. But it's the sort of thing we do. And all right, let's have a go then. But it turns out to be a lottery ticket, which of course is a lot harder to find than £8 million worth of money. And it turns out that she is the daughter-in-law of the area's biggest gangster. And it turns out some of the gangsters also think this money's theirs. And Mal and Jackie's life just gets progressively more and more complicated. And it turns out it's not about this lottery ticket. There's a lot more going on. And it gets more terrifying and more violent as we build up to the denouement, as we like to say, in crime circles. And it was an absolute blast to write. I wrote it really quickly, in about 3 or 4 months. Really enjoyed doing it. I like those characters. They're funny and they're really kind of joyful to write and to be around. I kind of think, oh, I'll be mates with you. I'd be scared if I went out with Jackie because he would get in a fight, but I'd probably be mates with Mal.
And did you say that's going to be the first in a series?
There's three I'm contracted for with Waves Back, who've been brilliant, and they love the book as much as I do, and they're all written. I've actually finished the third one yesterday, so they're done, and each one tells a they're all standalone. They're all its own little story, and we learn a little bit more about Mal and Jackie in each one. So there's 3, and maybe there will be more. I think it depends how much people enjoy it. I'll probably write more just because I like doing it. So it was kind of just enjoy myself doing it and see what happens.
What made you finally decide to write crime fiction?
Well, we're meant to be keeping this separate. I'm actually better known under my other name for writing fantasy fiction. And under that name, I won the British Fantasy Award, Best Novel this year. And my books have done pretty well. And I like that. Fantasy is really good. But my reading over the past 2 decades has really been more crime, particularly American crime, which is my big love authors like Robert Grace and Harlan Coben and Robert B. Parker, who's a huge influence on the Mal and Jackie books. Bit of Hap and Leonard in there as well. And then sort of when I was very young, Agatha Christie was always in our house. So I read all the Agatha Christies, and that sort of golden age of crime is a big love of mine. We've got a whole shelf of first edition Agathas out there. So yeah, crime is possibly closer to my heart than fantasy. Even my first fantasy book that sold was actually a murder mystery in fantasy clothes. So yeah, it was something I really wanted to do. But I'm a bit of a tart. I don't really hold the idea of genre. I just like to write. I don't really care what I'm writing. So whether I'm writing something with like dragons in it, or something that's like a really gritty, hard-hitting murder mystery, it's no difference to me. I'm writing about people because people are what matter, and people are what I get really excited about. And do I like these people? I'm interested in their stories. Everything else, that's just like the clothes they're wearing. What it is doesn't matter. It's those people and they're in a struggle, and what they want and what they need, and how that drives them to do certain things. And that's what I'm always exploring, sometimes in depth and sometimes for comedy.
What's the most interesting you found out when doing research for your books?
Oh God, this is a really hard question. I get asked this a lot. I don't really do research. It's not a thing that interests me. I'm writing fiction, so I make stuff up. I learned a lot more about powerful cars writing these books than I knew before, because I've no real interest in cars, but Jackie drives powerful cars, and you have to learn stupid things like, does it actually have enough room in the glove compartment for him to put some binoculars in, because some of them don't? And does it have a stereo, because they're always playing music? And then someone I know who knows about cars said this car would not have a stereo. It's too much money. Really expensive cars don't have stereos, apparently, which was so maybe it's that really expensive cars don't have stereos. But generally I'm just making stuff up all the time, and I've got quite I'm a very curious person, so there's quite a large knowledge base in my head that I can draw on. So I don't like to be slowed down either when I'm writing and stopping to research things. No, I just do it, fly through it. So yeah, cars and stereos, that's the nearest I've got. Oh, and how to pick a lock. I did research how to pick a lock, which I then ended up using because my little boy locked his bike up and forgot the code. Well, I say he forgot the code, I forgot the code. So I actually had to pick the bike lock. So I was thinking, that's the first time writing's actually been useful in a practical sense in my entire life. And I was like, yes, and I did it. It's quite good.
That's pretty cool, actually. I like that.
Yeah.
Have you made lots of author friends since you've become a writer?
Yes, yeah. I've made loads of author friends. It was really weird that sort of I'm quite a, maybe you will use the word eccentric person. You can see my house, so you probably get some idea that it's a bit odd. And when I had my first books published and started hanging around with people who also wrote, it was this feeling of, oh, this is it. This is where I should be. You know, when you're doing a job and you're always just constantly thinking, have I just messed this up completely? And oh, am I going to be in trouble? It's just gone. It's not, well, maybe for copy edits, bit of that was copy edit, so they're going to shout at me because I don't like to use English correctly. We're not meant to say that, but it's not rules, it's guidelines. That's the truth. So yeah, I've made lots of author friends, and they're all lovely, and it's really supportive, which is lovely, because people who buy books. They don't like buy, well, I bought my book for this year. They buy loads of books, so we all recommend each other's books, and oh, if you like this, you'll like that, and it's just it's a really lovely, welcoming place to be. There's always the odd one that isn't, but you just ignore them.
Yeah. And do you get a lot of feedback from readers?
Not for Numbers Game yet, because it doesn't come out till next week. For my other stuff, yeah, I get quite a lot of feedback, and the reviews have started coming in for Numbers Game, which is really nice, because up until that point, you have your agent saying, yeah, this is good, and then your publisher. I mean, for Numbers Game, I think nearly every publisher in the country said no to it, but for Goodreads, they liked it, which was lovely. My agent sends me the feedback when people say no, and they all liked it, and it kind of was a bit, we're not sure how to market it, because it doesn't really fit into a comfortable place in, I'm saying this as far as I'm aware, because you say stuff and it turns out you're entirely wrong. I'm nearly always wrong, so I'll just presume I am, and I'll just wear it and pretend I'm not. It doesn't quite seem to fit into a place in British crime, in that it's funny, but it's also very gritty, and it's very northern and working class, and there's a slight supernatural element, and I think sort of two or three of those maybe I'd have got away with, but sort of going to all of them before, maybe a bit much. But Wavesback, who eventually picked it up as their sort of debut for their publishing imprint as well, really love it and get it, and it seems from the reviews that, and the NetGalley things, that the readers as well have just sort of clicked into it and gone, yeah, I like these people, I want to be with them, and that's a really lovely feeling, especially because this book has been in my head for well over a decade. These people.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you come to be associated with your publishers, because they are.
Well, it's my agent Ed Wilson of Johnson and Alcock, who handles the fantasy stuff. I sent this to him, and he loved it. He absolutely loved it. But he did say, but it's not quite like anything that's about at the moment, so it might struggle, or it'll do great guns. And it struggled, but he never gave up on it. He just kept going. He really liked it. He really believed in it, and he kept going. And sort of whenever anything new came up that he thought might be interested in, he would go, read this, it's really good. And eventually Wavesback read it and thought, yeah, this is really good. And they wanted to launch with something that had its own personality, was the way they put it. So they've gone full in on it, and hopefully it'll do reasonably well. I don't know. Depends what people think. If people read it and talk about it, then brilliant, and that's it. You're golden then. But if people read it and go, I don't know any of these people who wrote this rubbish, then you stuff that. But I don't think they will. I think it lives on the fact that you meet Mal and Jackie and you like them. You just think, oh. Well, no, I have a friend who reads for me, and she sent back a comment on the second book that just said Jackie would get it. And I was like, no, he's a psychopath. You don't have to like him that much. She's like, no, he's really hot. It's like, no, I've written him too well. To dial him back a bit.
Yeah, you can't. Sometimes characters just are.
Yeah,
you can't help it. They just are.
Yeah, he very much just is, and it's weird when you write a book how much people you've known and you see them in it, and you think, oh yeah, I know where I stole that bit of Jackie from. I know who you are, and I know who that is, and I think you can point to nearly everybody in the book and say, oh, that bit is so and so.
Have you got any secret jokes or messages in your books that only a few people will understand?
Yes, there's always references to my agent. I sneak them in there, and a lot of the time, names I put in the names of people I know, slightly changed, and kill them off. So if you die in the book, you know it's you, but nobody else. Nobody else. That's mostly because I'm really bad at thinking of names. It's really difficult. It's one of the hardest. It's really odd how a name sort of encompasses a character, and if you don't get the name right, you can't write them. You say, who is this person? And suddenly the name clicks, and you're like, all right, I've got you now. So I steal my friends' names, especially for people that are going to die quite quickly. And go, you'll go there, and then it's. I don't ever kill off people I don't like. I only kill off people I do like. So that's most of the jokes. Trying to think I've got. See, I wrote this book 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, 3, I think. And so it's quite difficult to remember what's in it. I'm just.
Well, you're going to be asked lots more questions, so.
I'm going to have to reread it.
Yeah. Not necessarily by me because I haven't read it yet, but I'm on the blog tour, so I'm going to have to read it at some point.
I'm sure you'll like it. It's fun and funny. They're just a blast to be around. Well, I say that you might hate it. Yeah.
I like funny. It's fine. It sounds right up my street. And
fingers crossed.
Zoe's a harsh taskmaster. So what I do as she says.
Yeah. The blog tour lady. I was being told about her today by Nick.
Yeah. I love her to bits, but yeah, she's strict. So just be warned as well. Very strict. I think that's not till the end of August, is it? I think?
August, yeah, they have a plan, and publisher Nick used to do marketing for HarperCollins, so he seems to know what he's doing. So I'm just letting them. I have no interest in the business side of writing. I like to write books and then just give it over and let other people do stuff. And what happens to them happens. So
sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah, it's been working so far. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. If you were able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you like to spend a day with?
Oh, gosh. I'd quite like to spend some time with Ian Banks. I love his science fiction as Ian M. Banks. Not quite as taken with his literary stuff. I don't know why. Or maybe Robert Grace, because LA Requiem is one of my absolute favorite books. I just think it's a masterclass, and the way he uses narrative and point of view in it is just astounding. I met him. He came to Leeds to do a signing, and I just talked to him about how wonderful that book was. So I'm sure he was overjoyed by that. but yeah, Robert Grace, or maybe James Lee Burke, who's just such an astounding writer that I literally read his books and I'm just gobsmacked by the end of them. I just read A Private Cathedral, his latest one, where he takes a character he's had for ages, and there's been like supernatural hints through the Robbie Shaw books, and then in this one there's a 1,000-year-old hitman from hell comes after him, and they have a showdown on what I think is the River Styx, and there's no way that should work at all. It should be ridiculous, and it's just brilliant. I was literally gobsmacked. So maybe James Lee Burke, all of them. I'd like to talk to all of them. I just sit there listening. But yeah. I think James Lee Burke, because his prose is so beautiful, where he sort of evokes nature and the deep south, and there is this sense of gathering violence that's going to break in his books, and you know it's coming, and it's just sort of holding back, and it's a really clever thing that I wish I could do. I can't. I'm just like, everything's happening now.
It's quite a popular choice, actually. It's come up a few times. So
he's wonderful.
What's been your favourite moment so far being a writer?
I think this is really prosaic and boring. Before I sold my first book, I was very ill, and kind of just life wasn't easy for us. We were all right, but life wasn't easy. And then just making the sort of leap to being able to not worry about whether you'll have enough money for the shopping at the end of the month. It is hugely life-changing. And if I wasn't aware, I was aware of what a problem poverty is, which is something my books deal with, the way we treat other people. Just that difference of seeing how your life changes when you don't actually have to worry that much about money, and how much easier. Money is never going to make you happy, but it can definitely make everything a lot easier. And that's a really boring change. And the other one is a complete and lasting sense of joy that I wake up every morning and just think, I write books. That's what I do. I write books for a living. I sit here on my couch and I make up nonsense and I write it down, and then somebody pays me for it, and then someone in America reads it and emails me to tell me they liked it. That is just the maddest, biggest. I remember thinking, oh, maybe I could be a writer, and knowing realistically the chances of actually ever becoming a professional writer are just tiny. And I've done it. I'm here. And I'm writing stuff I love. I'm writing the sort of the fantasy side of it, which is just a blast. And I'm now writing the crime side of it. And it's like all my wishes are just here. A genie has appeared and gone, here you are, RJ. Just do the thing you like for the rest of your life. And it's like, wow. And it's really weird. When I got my first book published, an old salt came up to me and went, well, it's very exciting now. But you'll find that after a bit, you become very jaded, and it's all very wearing on you. A couple of years, and you'll just be like, oh, this is very difficult. And I'm just like, no. Now every day is just like, I'm going on holiday for a week soon, and my wife said, you're not bringing a computer. You're not allowed to work. And I feel quite hard done. I'm like, oh, but I like it. Oh, I want to do. I want to. So that it's just. I feel like I'm doing the thing I should be doing, and every day is just like, oh, it's amazing. It's not to say it's fun. Sometimes you're just like, oh God, how do I write this? It's sending me insane. But at the end of the day, I've worked in call centers for 8 hours a day, and I would much rather be annoyed about a sentence than be dealing with people's complaints. So I've won. That's yeah, I feel like I've won at life. No matter what happens, I've just had the most fantastic time.
And what's your biggest dream? What's the thing that you really want to achieve?
I don't really think like that. I'm very, very sort of live in the now and with whatever's happening. So I don't really think ahead much, which has led to some rather unfortunate situations. But I don't know. It'd be quite nice one day to see something I've written on television, to see how that comes. Just because I've written a lot of stuff for theatre in the past, and it's fascinating to see how your work is changed by actors taking it, and it becomes something else, and that's what interests me more than probably it being a mark of success, the idea of seeing what my characters become when dealt with by somebody else. But yeah, I think I stopped thinking what's going to happen the first time I got fan mail. I hate the word fan, it's awful. I've just got a load of new friends, and it's brilliant. Fan kind of gives you this impression that because you write books, somehow you're better. And that's just so much rubbish. Anyone can write a book if they try hard enough.
I don't know. I think especially some of the more avid readers look at authors as our rock stars and our celebrities. So
I definitely dress like I'm a rock star. That's my big indulgence, is really expensive Jeffrey West boots. Is that wearing? Can you see them?
Nice.
Yeah, I was just flashing my boots at her because I take it that if this is audio, they won't see that. But I'm wearing a pair of red snakeskin boots. But yeah, but I've always dressed like this. It's not the long hair and the black and makeup and stuff. That's not a persona put on to get attention. It's who I've been since I was 16. Don't know how to be anything else. but my agent just referred to us as rock star writer. I think it's mostly because I wear a lot of hats.
What do you like to do when you're not writing?
Think about writing. I don't really do. I play video games. I quite like to play video games. So I've just written. This sounds insane, but it is true. I promise you. I've just written a book in 3.5 weeks because I had an idea. 2.5 weeks, sorry. I had an idea, and I couldn't stop writing it. And I couldn't play video games. I'd do anything. I just wanted to sit and write this book. So it is slightly obsessional, maybe, writing with me. But yeah, and I like my garden. I grow bonsai trees. Well, I kill bonsai trees. That's truer to say. I've got my longest lasting bonsai tree didn't wake up from his winter sleep this year, which is a bit sad. He was 5 years old, but that's a good life for one of my bonsai trees. But I do that. I quite like the idea, and I grow chili plants. So I don't know what to do with the chilies half the time. And I grow tomato plants. I've got a little garden, and I collect taxidermy, but only really old taxidermy that's not very good. Because I don't think you can see in that camera. Can you see Wanda? It's Wanda the wallaby. She's sat here with me because I was doing a thing. There's taxi. We live in a big history. I really like history. We live in a really old house, and it's flat in a really old house, but our front room is sort of magnificent, which makes us sound very grand, and we're not. We're just lucky we happen to look into it. But we've kind of covered it in odd art. I like art, and I like weird taxidermy that somebody did really badly about 100 years ago. I'm not interested in it. If it looks like the animal it's meant to be, I'm a bit not really my sort of thing. If it looks like it was done by somebody who's never seen a deer and stuffed a deer's head, then I'm there for that. Or something that's a bit moth-eaten and is falling apart, and everyone's going, "Oh, why would you want that?" So we definitely want that. So yeah, that's what me and my wife do. We collect strange art and outsider art. I made a terrarium. Just a music. Oh God, yeah, I love music. I listen to music all the time. And my little boy's learning guitar because he's could actually learn, unlike me. So if he wants to be a musician at some point, he knows what he's doing.
And who are your favourites to listen to?
Oh well, I like all sorts. There's a band called the Afghan Wigs who I really like. Sort of soul-y, grungy rock band who've been going 25 years now, quite a long time. And I like a lot of. If you told sort of 18-year-olds me that I was going to be saying this when I got to this age, I like a lot of country music. There's a very dark and strange version of country that comes out of Denver. Bands like 16 Horsepower, who became Woven Hand, and Jay Munley, and it's very narrative music, which I like. It tells stories, and I really like that. And then I like a lot of really noisy extreme metal that most people would say just is a headache. But I like that. But I like all sorts of things, as long as it's not background music-y. If it's kind of inoffensive, then I'm quite offended by it. But if it's in your face, then I'm usually quite, except for jazz, which is like having a migraine headache. But sorry, jazz fans. My best friend loves jazz, so I mean he's wrong, but we've learned to live with that. So yeah, I like all sorts. Anything. I can never quite tell what's going to catch my ear, but then I'll listen to it obsessively. This week I've been listening to Soul Asylum. Had a big hit with a song called Runaway Train, but before that they did an album called Soul Asylum and the Horse They Rode In On, which is really good. I kind of got bored of them after that because I was such a hipster back then. It's like, you've been in the charts, I'm afraid. Got not in my record collection anymore, sir. But yeah, so all manner of music. Too much. There's too much. And it's really weird now with Spotify. There's so much music. It drives me a bit mad. Oh, and yeah.
So you said you've written the 3 books and then you've written another one this week. So are you working on anything now, and what's coming next?
All 3 Mal and Jackie books are written. They're done, and I think we're hoping to release them over a 12-month period. And then the one I've written is it's a crime book, but it's more sort of Agatha Christie-ish, whodunity, quite different in tone, but I really enjoyed doing that. The next thing I actually do is I've just re-signed with Orbit, who do my fantasy books. So I'll be going and doing a big, massive fantasy book that takes ages to write. It's really weird. I find those much harder than I find the crime novels. The crime novels not just sort of, but a fantasy novel, you've got to sort of invent a world and then you've got to remember it, which is really annoying. Because with our world, it's brilliant. You can, what are trees like? Everybody knows what trees are like. You know, in a fantasy book, you go, yeah, well, they're not actually trees. They're lizard trees or whatever. So I'll be doing that, and then depending on what my agent thinks of the one I've just written, and I've also got an American set crime novel that's quite hard boiled that I'm going to go back and go through and make it a bit less violent in because it's probably too violent for the market according to my agent. So I'll do that, but I never really know. I have an idea and then think, oh yeah, I'm going to do that idea, and then I do it, and that's how my mind works. and I get really excited about stuff, and I'm sorry I'm doing that thing. And it makes me sound like I'm quite manic, and I'm not. I'm really sort of a laid back, chilled out person. but I enjoy the process of writing. It's kind of, I don't know what anyone else would do for fun. I write, and it's my happy place.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
Oh no, I'm really bad at thinking of questions. I'm good at reacting to stuff. I'm really bad at thinking of stuff, which you'd think as a writer, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can tell you all this stuff. Just be nice to each other. And, yeah, I think that's it really. Don't kill people. It's really interesting in a book to deal with murder, but don't actually do it. That's my big advice, because I imagine it's quite stressful as well if you have to hide a murder. And messy. Really messy. Yeah, so that's my big bit of advice to everyone out there. Don't kill people. Have a good time all the time, and just enjoy yourself.
So do you just want to tell everyone where they can find out more about you and where they can buy your books from?
Oh, you can find out more about me. I am on Twitter, RJ Darker, which is absolutely nothing to do with RJ Barker, and you can go to the Wavesback website, which is Wavesback. Wavesback on Twitter as well, or you can go to www.rjbarker.com, and there will be an RJ Dark, my evil twin side on that. There'll be an RJ Dark website. In fact, cut that bit out about the website, because I'm not meant to mix up the two me's, and I keep doing it. I don't care. But yeah. So yes, Twitter, RJ Darker. Twitter is where to go, and follow that. Then you'll quite quickly be in on the joke of who I am.
Awesome. Well, that's it. That's all I got for you. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you. I can let my wife back in this room now, because I had to